In the 32 years since the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum was robbed of 13 works of art valued at more than $500 million, there have been many theories about who may be responsible. And for years, my next guest has felt pretty confident he had the right one. That'd be the Gardner's head of security, Anthony Amore, who joins me now in the latest developments in the case. Anthony, it's good to see you as always.
Likewise, Jim.
So most people think there are two certain things in life, death and taxes. I know that there are actually three: death, taxes, and yet another story about someone who may have been behind this theft. We read it in the last couple of days about this guy, James Marks, murdered going into his house in Lynn in 1991. Fill in the blanks for us if you can.
Sure. Well, he was murdered in February of 1991, so it was just less than a year after the Gardner theft took place. And his name had come to us back in around 2010 from a tipster who said that Mr. Marks had told that person that he had access to the Gardner art. That's not an exact quote, but he sort of gave that message to this person. Sometime later, I was able to find out that Mr. Marks was a person who had been killed by a person of interest in the Gardner theft by the name of Robert Garrenti. I spoke to Garrenti's widow, and we were able to confirm this information, worked with the state police and the Lynn police. And the fact that Marks had been talking about the Gardner pieces and also had been killed by a person who was a person of interest raised obvious red flags for us. And then on top of that, we learned that not long after the theft, Garrenti and another person of interest named Robert Gentile, who lives in Manchester, Connecticut, were in the area around the time of the Marks homicide. So all of these things come together to raise questions for us.
And you're hoping that now that it's back in the news, I know you've known about this for quite a while, that it's in the news, it may prompt other people to come forward about something. But the thing that I don't get, well, I shouldn't say I don't get. Roughly a dozen years ago, you referenced that this guy, Marks, was bragging about how he had some of the paintings, I think in his third floor apartment in Lynn, and it was searched. There was nothing there. I don't know much about criminals and mobsters and thieves, but isn't part of what you do for a living is brag to your compatriots that the biggest crime ever in the art world or another crime, I'm responsible, I have the paintings. Isn't that something you'd expect or no?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, we do have information that we've gathered over the years about certain people that we have great interest in having bragged, but not as much or not to the extent where we're able to pinpoint where we can find the paintings right now. So we've said in the past, and have said in the show, that we have a good idea who did this. We believe that we know who perpetrated the heist, but getting from point A, knowing who pulled it off, to point B, where are the paintings today, is the rub here.
You know, every single time I talk to you about this is what puts me totally over the edge. You, and I assume when you say we, you're talking about the FBI, correct me if I'm wrong, believe
Yes.
You know who's responsible, but you just can't get from here to there with proof. Is that right?
Right. Well, we can't get from there to where are the paintings today, which is the only question we're trying to address.
What do you mean? Because the people, the suspects are dead? Is that what your point is?
Yes, the FBI mentioned years ago that the suspects, the actual perpetrators, had passed away. But beyond that, Jim, the only goal here is putting the paintings back in frames, at least from my perspective. I work for the museum. Arrests and prosecutions aren't the sorts of things that we really care about. On top of that, the statute of limitations for the actual heist expired many, many years ago.
So why don't you say out loud who the person is if they're dead? You can't get sued for that, so that may even prompt more follow-up leads than this situation with this guy that was executed going into his house, this Marks guy. Why don't you just say the name?
We believe that it's a much more effective way for us to investigate it via going to people we know who are connected to those, instead of putting these names out there and getting flooded, and I mean flooded, with calls, not just from psychics and what have you, but from con men and theorists. I don't know if the public understands the extent to which we receive calls from those sorts of people.
You know,
And they all have to be followed up on, Jim, so it's incredibly time consuming.
you know, I, as an outsider, have followed this fairly closely, like I think almost everybody in this community has. The guy that I can't get my mind off, there was a 23-year-old guard. According to you, not somebody else, your motion detectors in the museum never detected the thieves in a room where I think there was a Manet, did detect this guard. You also said, that prior to buzzing the thieves in, he opened a side door. Why is he still a free man? I mean, the circumstantial evidence is pretty overwhelming, isn't it?
It's interesting circumstantial evidence. It obviously causes one to sit up and pay attention and to investigate very thoroughly, but it's not enough to actually arrest somebody or even accuse them of a crime just based on the circumstantial evidence.
Is he part of the group that's responsible for this, according to you?
I wouldn't comment on a past employee.
You know, I am also amazed about how calm watching you now, Anthony, I've known you for quite a while. It sounds almost like your attitude is, well, we just have to continue pursuing what we're doing, and we're going to find the paintings, I don't know, next week, next month. It's been 32 years. Unless I'm misreading you, where does the level of confidence come from? Is it hope over reality, or is it reality?
For me, it's reality. But, you know, the reason is just because I know, you know, all I can do, Jim, is give it my best effort and try to do everything humanly possible to get the paintings back in the best way we can. And that's what I'm doing. So that's where the hope comes from. That's where the confidence comes from. I know we're doing everything we possibly can. There's no one I won't speak to. There's no, you know, line, well, this person is a dangerous person or this person is unscrupulous. No, we're doing everything we possibly can. Sure, we come up against a lot of mistruths and myths about the theft that cause a lot of problems publicly. I keep hearing people saying that if you come forward with only one painting, you get no reward. Just crazy things like this that we have to try to counter as well. But we're doing it, and we're working really hard. And I also have history telling me that these things do come back, and they come back a generation later, and the perseverance is the key.
Well, I hope your hope and perseverance is rewarded, and I really hope you're there the day it happens. Anthony Amore, as always, good to talk to you.
Thanks so much, Jim. Appreciate that.